Now we are ready to head for the horn. Way, hey, roll and go. Our boots and our clothes, boys, are all in the pond. Timmy, rollicking, randy, dandy, oh. Heave a pole and heave away. Way, hey.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. I thought I would do something a little different with this 1v1 and actually walk you through all the decisions I made in this battle. Pay close attention to things like the wind direction, my sails and their position, and my firing vectors. In this battle, I wanted to demonstrate the power that staying upwind gives you. You really control the fight if you're upwind. Alrighty, so I have to start off with a gun salute as always, then I decide to load double shot on my right side because I'm pretty close to my enemy and want to make a nice first pass. I'm turning into him at this point, and he's firing a few tracing shots at my sides, which tend to bounce off. And then I turn into him and unload my double shot into his side, which does a pretty good effect, but it would have done better if I was a little bit closer. Then I decide that I'm going to start turning to the left and keeping the weather gauge on him. So I want to try to stay upwind as much as possible at all times. So rather than turning right and going behind him, I decide to turn to the left and start to tack through the wind. And as you notice, I'll also be firing chain off my bow and stern chasers throughout the entire fight because I want to keep up the pressure on his sails at the same time that I'm hitting his hull. So at this point, I've dedicated myself to the fact that I'm going to be tacking back and forth through the wind, trying to stay upwind as much as possible. And I decide to throw a surprise at WillieTheKid by loading chain on my right side. So on one of my next passes, I'm going to throw some chain into his sails. And it's important to not only focus on the hull, but also focus on sails, because if your enemy has to choose between repairing their sails or their hull, that's a good thing for you, because you got to keep them trying to decide which one they want to repair. So if you can do that, you can keep them on their toes, and if they're repairing their sails, then you can shoot their hull. If they're repairing their hull, then you can shoot their sails, or you can keep hitting their hull. But it's good to make them choose which of those things they need to work on repairing. So at this point, I'm not really sure what WillieTheKid is planning. Is he going to shoot my hull? Is he going to shoot my sails or my masts? So I decide to go to battle sails, get my left broadside off, and then tack through the wind and try to hit him with my chain that I've already loaded on my right side. So I'm kind of thinking a few steps ahead right now. And as you can see, he does some decent damage to my left side on this pass, but you know, it's pretty negligible in the grand scheme of things. I start to tack through the wind again hitting him with chain off my stern, and as you can see, when I go to tack, he just dumped his broadside, so it's safe for me to go to full sail to get through this tack faster than if I was at battle sail. If I were to do this tack at battle sail, it would take me twice as long to get through it. So I know that he just shot off his broadside, so I'm going to go to full sail, get through it quickly, and then shoot my chain into his masts here. And you'll see, look at that damage. He goes from basically 100% down to 81%. in one shot. I've done my damage, so I know that he can't escape. He's going to have to start choosing if he wants to repair his sails or if he wants to repair his hull going forward. So my chain did its job, and I'm now through the wind. I'm still upwind of him, so I'm going to go back down to battle sails, just because I'm always, you know, cognizant of the fact that he could do the same thing to me. So as soon as he sees me shooting at his masts, perhaps he's going to start doing the same to me, and then we'll both be in the same situation where I'm going to have to choose if I need to repair my sails or my hull. So I want to try to negate that as much as possible. I'm always switching to battle sails and depowering. Do you see how my masts and my sails are actually perpendicular to him? So even if he were to shoot chain into my masts right now, they would do very little effect. And now I'm going to shoot a broadside into his side armor as he turns, always trying to wait as long as possible, because if I shoot my broadside too early, when he's at an angle, his shots are going to bounce off the side or my shots are going to bounce off his side, I should say. And that's not going to do as much damage as if it was a flat connection. And we're going back through the wind here. I'm going to full sail because I know that he already fired his broadside, so my masts and my sails are safe. And as you can see, when I started this tack, I was only going 2 knots. So it's basically starting and going through a tack from a dead stop. 2 knots is very negligible in terms of speed. So I'm actually going to do something a little bit different with my tack, and I depower and I throw my sails at a 90-degree angle from the wind to try to get a little bit of backward momentum before starting my tack through. So if you need to replay these past few seconds, take a look at that. That's how you got to reverse a little bit first before you start your tack so you can get some momentum. Otherwise, you'll be stuck in your tack for a long time. And I've already gone back to battle sails if you take a look on the bottom left, and I'm just pushing out of the tack now. And as you can see, he's kind of struggling in the wind right now. His sails are shot to 80%, and he's just having difficulty tacking through the wind because he was almost at a dead stop as well. So I'm taking my time lining up my shot. I have a little bit more armor left on my left side, so I'm going to absorb this hit from him if he chooses to shoot my hull. And I'm still just taking my sweet time lining up my shot, because if I shoot too early, my guns are going to glance off the side, and that's going to do very little damage. You got to run a tracing shot just there and then dump it into him. And as soon as I shoot him, I try to turn away to the right because I want to try to have him bounce off my side. And you can see a few splashes in the water there, and he actually misses the second half of his broadside there. And he did do a lot of penetration damage, because even though I was angling at that distance with the new penetration mechanics, even at that distance you're going to get some penetration. Now I'm starting my tack through again, continuing this dance, and I'm going to change my firing vector to from the stern. So you've got a few different firing vectors, and they each have their own time and place. And you can see as I'm drifting, so my rear guns are going to start to angle on him first. So I'm going to do firing from the stern. And as you can see, I actually started my hull repair a few moments ago, right before I completed this tack. I want to try to start my hull repair as early as possible so that I can get my hull back up to 100%. And he's actually kind of running from me at this moment in time. So something I usually like to do when I'm running my hull repairs, and you've probably seen this in some of my other videos, is I turn off one of the sides of my guns so that I'm only reloading one at a time. And then I also press 7 to turn off the crews working on guns. You only have a limited amount of crew on your ship, and each person can only be doing one thing at a time. So the more people that you can see are repairing your ship, if you look at the 5 key on the bottom of the screen, it says 298 on the right of that figure. So you can have a maximum number of people working on your repair right now is 298. So if I had not turned off 7, then that figure may have been a little bit lower, and I wouldn't have been getting as much out of my repair as I could. So I'm at full sails, kind of chasing him at this moment, and I've reloaded my left side, so I'm going to allow him to turn downwind, and I'm going to turn downwind as well. I see he moves to battle sails, so I also move to battle sails. And I fire a ranging shot to make sure that I get a good connection, and then I dump my entire broadside into him. And something I do at this moment is turn into him, so I can get my right side firing on him as well. So I just dumped my left side into him. Now I'm going to turn into him and try to get him with my right side. This whole time I've also been working on his sails, so as you can see, they're already down to 73%. After that first initial pass with the chain, with my broadside of chain, I've got him down to 80, and now just by hitting him every now and then with my bow and stern chasers, I've gotten him to 73%. All my guns aren't loaded at this time, but I'm still going to dump into him anyway, keeping up the pressure. Look at his sides. He's basically half gone on both sides. comparatively, I'm basically at full health. My sides are almost 100%. I've got 99% sails. I'm going to start attack through the wind again. And you might have just missed it, but he just started a sail repair. So I think he accidentally clicked repair sails instead of repair hull. If I were in his situation, I would have repaired my hull at that point because it's what keeps you above water. So I'm starting to tack through, and my guns aren't loading as fast because my crew are still working on getting off that repair and moving back towards reloading the guns. So this is where patience is a virtue. So I'm going to do my best not to turn into him until my guns are loaded, because I don't want him to get a shot on me and damage my hull without me being able to reciprocate and damage his hull in turn. So I'm taking my time getting through this turn, and as you can see, my very bottom gun deck, the 36 longs, are almost done reloading now. He's doing a good job of angling coming into me right now, and it looks like he's about to push out of it. I think he might have thought that I would go for a bow rake there, but I'm only focused on his sides because that's the weakest part of him right now, especially the fact that he chose to repair his sails rather than his hull. And I neutralized my sails just there. As you can see in the bottom left, you can see how my masts are neutralized to the wind, so I'm trying to still protect my sails because I don't want him to do to me what I did to him. And he instead goes for my hull again. So I could turn into him at this point. He's half dead on his sides and he's repairing his sails, but I still wanted to demonstrate the power of staying upwind and dictating the fight to the enemy. So instead I'm just going to keep tacking back and forth for now, and I'm actually going to turn to firing from the stern again with my firing vector. As you can see, my rear guns are going to draw up on him first, so as I naturally float by, I'm going to use that momentum to my advantage and do firing rolling from the stern, and that's going to get some really good connections into his side as I turn. The thing I really liked about this shot is that I was able to pull it off and get those connections, 34 hull hits, and now I still have time to reload as I tack and get another shot off by the time I finish my tack, and I'll be able to get a shot off again with the same side on his right side now. So it's kind of like I was able to tack through, get a shot on his left side, and then now that I'm spending the time to tack through, I'll be able to reload in time to get some shots on his other side. So I'm getting a lot of damage in with just one side as I'm naturally tacking through. Alright, so my guns are reloading now, and again, I'm just taking my sweet time, allowing him to angle himself and allowing me to angle myself as I'm waiting for my guns to reload. I don't want to turn in too quickly. I don't want to fire too quickly before I know that I'm going to have a nice connection and actually get some penetration on his hull. And there you have it, 32 hull hits. Here comes some more. And if I had fired as soon as my guns had reloaded, I bet you half those shots would have glanced off the side and wouldn't have done any damage. So it's really important, especially in PvP battles, that you're actually doing damage to your target. So often I see people, they're just shooting just to be shooting, really. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason about it. You need to make sure that your shots are counting, every single one of them. So if you need to wait an extra 15 seconds, then wait the extra 15 seconds, because it's so very important that you're actually doing damage to your enemy. A few moments ago, I started to load double on my right side, so I'm intending to move in and close the distance on him. So again, thinking ahead, now he just shoots some chain into me. So now, 2/3 of the way through the fight, he finally decides that he should start chaining my sails. Anyway, getting back to the fact, so I'm loading double on my right side, and that's because he's really damaged. I just want to get in, close in, and finish the fight now. So he's already wasted his repair on his sails, so I know that I'm pretty safe to go in and just start pummeling him. So that double shot's going to do a lot of damage at close range if I can get in there. And double shot's a little bit like chain. I would never ever use it at range. So if you look at the bottom right of the screen, you can see the mini map, and you really want to wait to use your double shot until your enemy is really close to you and you can see them on the mini map. Usually I don't use chain unless I can see them on that map, but double shot you definitely want to wait. Like this is a good range right now. If I had double shot loaded on my left, that would have been a good opportunity to use it. And now I'm going to start tacking through the wind, and you'll see I'll get to use it with my right side. Going through the wind now, again shooting chain out my stern. Just always keeping that pressure up, even though he's at 98% it looks like now. You know, if I keep doing that every time I tack through, eventually he'll get down to 90, eventually he'll get down to 85. So, you know, even though it seems like it's not doing that much, it will in the long run. So again, firing a tracing shot to make sure that I'm actually penetrating. And then here we go, rolling backwards fire, 40 hull hits with double shot, and his left side is gone. I'm now just going to commit to going in and finishing him off. I've done what I needed to do. I've demonstrated what you can do if you keep the wind and you keep doing this S motion back and forth. There's other ways to fight, obviously, but I just thought this would be a fun way to have this battle, duke it out. And to me, it's kind of a more defensive way to play, particularly when you're in a one-on-one situation and you can't rely on friends to help you out. If there were more people in this fight, if it was a 2v2 or something like that, maybe you can be more aggressive, but I tend to try to play a little bit more defensively, and I'm going to try to get as much damage out of this as I can. So I went to his side that still has armor. I could have just tacked through and gone on his weak side, but you know, I need to unlock some boxes, some knowledge slots on this Implacable, so I'm going to go ahead and get some shots in on his armored side so I make sure I get some experience out of this while he's still alive. So not much can be done for him at this point in time. He's basically gone. It's just a waiting game and waiting for me to reload fast enough to get rid of the rest of his armor and let him sink. But main takeaways from this fight. I think the biggest thing that was demonstrated here was that I had the wind at the very beginning of the fight, and I never let him have it. I kept it the entire time, and I used that to my advantage. I kept tacking back and forth, and I also worked on his sails at the same time that I was working on his hull. So I think I commented a little bit ago, but he didn't even fire chain into my sails until 2/3 of the way through the battle. And at that point, with what was going on at that time, it was a little bit too late for that. You know, he should have, if he wanted to start to work on that, he should have done it earlier in the fight when, you know, he had more opportunity to use that to his advantage, and he should have done a full broadside like I did. It's really good to try to do full broadsides along them as you're raking them, if that makes sense. So as you're passing behind their stern or in front of their bow, it's best to try to do the chain right through their sails. Like if I were to do it right now as I'm passing the stern, if I was farther away and I was able to get chain through, that's what you want to do, because if you do the chain when you're just broadside to broadside, you're not going to get as many sail hits, which means less sail damage. But if you were to fire one chain through the stern, it does the same thing that a cannonball does. So you fire a cannonball through the stern, it's going to hit the structure, it's going to hit a cannon, maybe it'll knock a cannon out, and it'll take out some crew. So it'll do multiple things at once. If you were to fire a chain down the stern or down the bow, you're going to hit multiple sails at the same time. So if you were to do a broadside of chain, just broadside to broadside, maybe you'll get 40 or 50 hits, but if you do it down the stern, you'll get, you know, close to 80 if you do it right. So big things, try to press the advantage. So if you have the wind, keep it. If you don't have the wind, try to take it. Hit multiple things at once. So don't only focus on hull, focus on sails. And always, you know, bide your time, take your time when you're doing these fights. Don't rush into it. Take your time to let your guns load, line up your shots, and do tracing shots. If you'd like to see more videos like this, make sure that you like and subscribe to my channel, and I hope you have a great day.